Would Billy Joe Saunders destroy Chris Eubank Jr. in a rematch? Would he beat him more decisively than he did first time around? Now, nobody, certainly I'm not, is questioning the validity of his decision over Chris Eubank Jr. first time. I felt like he did win the fight, but it was relatively close. Both fighters, as far as I'm concerned, have improved since then. Chris Eubank Jr. has improved from a technical point of view, but he's also improved in terms of his confidence, I believe, and also his experience. He's gained a lot of experience. He's been able to test out his moves against various different fighters and refine some of his technique. Don't mean he's not still technically flawed to a certain extent. He is. But I believe he's a technically better fighter now than he was when he fought Billy Joe the first time. He's more confident. He's more experienced. Lets his hands go more, etc. Billy Joe, to me, he was already technically good when he fought Eubank first time. His improvements have been more his fitness. It's well documented that he used to fade late in fights, and he certainly did in the first Eubank fight. But now that he's changed trainers and he's settled with Dominic Ingle, his fitness levels for his past two fights against Willie Monroe Jr. and now David Lemieux have been excellent. He's had great energy levels all the way through the fight, right up until the last round. So given the fact both guys have improved, if they were to have a rematch, my view is it would be highly competitive again. I don't see either one of these guys dominating. And I know the rabid Eubank fans and the rabid Saunders fans, they don't want to hear that. They want to hear me say one guy or the other guy is going to come in and smash their opponent to pieces. But I don't see it. I think it would be highly competitive again. Who would I pick in the fight? I need to see Chris Eubank Jr. against a slick boxer again, particularly a southpaw, before I would, well, preferably I'd like to see him against a slick southpaw before making a prediction on him versus Billy Joe Saunders, a rematch. Because we've seen Eubank Jr. against these come forward, plodding kind of guys like Arthur Abraham, Yildirim in his last fight, etc. And he looked good against those guys, but stylistically, they're nothing like Billy Joe Saunders, and styles make fights. George Groves will tell us a lot about Chris Eubank Jr. Groves is certainly not as slick as Billy Joe. He's not a southpaw, but he does fight in at least a similar kind of way. Okay, he's nowhere near as slick. Footwork not as good, but he's at least similar in the sense that he likes to keep things at long range. One thing I can say about George Groves, though, is he hits a lot harder than Billy Joe. So that's something that Eubank Jr. would have to take into account more fighting a George Groves than he would a Billy Joe. And that will manifest itself by Eubank Jr. being able to take more risks in a rematch against Billy Joe than he would take against George Groves. You know, when you're in there with a guy who's a big puncher, who's good at picking shots at long range and counter punching, you need to be very careful about how you approach him, about how you walk him down, about swinging from too far away. You could get clipped. Against Billy Joe, in the first fight, Eubank Jr. was swinging for the fences in the second half of that fight. He really wasn't worried about anything that Billy Joe was hitting him back with. And it is my view that Eubank Jr. actually froze in that first fight. That it wasn't a case of him miscalculating his strategy. I don't think it was that. I actually think Eubank Jr. froze early doors in that fight. And it took him a while for him to, you know, unfreeze, basically, and warm up mentally as much as physically. And when he did warm up physically, he looked wild and sloppy. Again, that is a typical symptom. If you've ever worked with amateur fighters who don't have much experience, you'll have them in the gym and their technique will be fine. They'll be in sparring, their technique's fine. But when they get in the ring and they're under pressure, all of a sudden the technique goes out the window and they're swinging for the fences. That's what Eubank Jr. looked like against Billy Joe. Even when he started letting his hands go, he was all over the place. In a rematch, I expect his technique to be a lot more refined. I expect him to keep his shape together a lot better against Billy Joe in a rematch. I think it would be, I don't know if it would be a better fight. I think it would be a more technical fight second time around. but I still think it'll be highly competitive. You know, I don't see Billy Joe having an easy night with Chris Eubank Jr. Eubank Jr. Eubank Jr. is taller than David Lemieux, faster on his feet than David Lemieux. He's got a back foot game himself, Eubank Jr. He can move around. He's not just going to be there like a potted plant in front of Billy Joe, allowing Billy Joe to move around him and, you know, treat him like a bull where Billy Joe's the matador. No, Eubank Jr. is not going to be there like Lemieux to be treated like that. He's going to use his own feet. He's going to use his own in and out movement in his range, and he's going to be able to pick his spots for when he's going to attack Billy Joe and pressure him, try and get him up against the ropes, etc. He'll be a lot more effective than Lemieux will. If you think that a Eubank Jr. fight is going to be as easy for Billy Joe as the Lemieux fight was, you are very badly mistaken in my view. I don't think it's going to be anything like a Lemieux fight. It's going to be way more difficult if that rematch happens. Okay, so again, we need to see, we're learning more and more about Eubank Jr. He's improving, but I would like to see him in there with someone slick. The Groves fight will tell us a certain amount. If he even comes through that, there's no guarantee he's going to win that fight. If he does, that'll tell us a certain amount. Then will he take on a slick southpaw? You know, a James DeGale fight would have told us a bit more. If he's able to take on James DeGale, if DeGale manages to, let's say, win a Truax rematch and Eubank Jr. takes on DeGale, how he copes with DeGale would tell us more about how he would cope with Billy Joe in a rematch. So we'll see, but those are my views. All right. I think it will be very competitive regardless who wins. I don't see Eubank just destroying Billy Joe. I certainly don't see Billy Joe destroying Eubank Jr. in a rematch. But let me know how you feel in the comment section below. Has your perception changed? Were you a guy who felt like maybe Eubank Jr. did enough to win the first fight, or if he had started earlier, he would have won the first fight anyway? And therefore, because he's improved, you think he would dominate Billy Joe next time around? Or are you on the other side of the fence where you think Billy Joe has got it together now? He wasn't in shape for the first Eubank Jr. fight. He was only 40% of himself or whatever. And this time around, he would just totally dominate Eubank Jr. Eubank Jr. wouldn't get a look in. Let me know which side of the fence you're sitting on. Drop your comments in the comment section below. It's Hatman, I'm out.